Hello, it's Susie, and today I am going to be doing one of our mini-series for this movement prescription podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by Duncan Galbraith of World Walking. So we've got just under 10 minutes, Duncan, to talk about the fantastic World Walking app, and it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you again. Thank you so much for coming to join me. Tell us a little bit about how you found yourself creating this wonderful thing for us all.
Oh, thanks very much, Susie. Nice to be talking to you again. And thanks for the chance to chat about World Walking. It's not something we get a lot of opportunity to do. I found my way into World Walking by accident, really. I worked in the NHS, decided to become a fitness instructor before I was too long in the tooth. That led me into cardiac rehabilitation, and the local leisure trust in Inverclyde, in their wisdom, because I have a complete inability to exercise to music, gave me a gym-based phase 4 cardiac rehab class at the Waterfront Gym in Greenock. So for want of something to say to the class participants one day, I invited them if they'd like to go on a walk. I think they felt it was round the park. The walk I had in mind was round the world, and they humoured me. We bought a map for £3.99. We got a box of pedometers from the cardiac rehab physio at Inverclyde Royal Hospital, Googled a route and set off. And 117 weeks later, we arrived back in Greenock, having walked 30,000 miles in support of a Scottish campaign to promote the benefits of cardiac rehab. And along the way, we thought, if it's working for us, maybe it'll work for others. So we decided to create a website. We had no idea what a website was, but we pursued it, and eventually, having raised the money to make it happen, we launched World Walking in October 2013. No idea if anybody would find it, no idea how they would find it, no idea if they would use it, no clue as to how we would fund it, but we just launched it quietly and hoped for the best. And by some miracle, we celebrated our 10th birthday last month, which never ceases to amaze me.
That is absolutely incredible story. So this just started from you and a small group of people. And as you say, the Inverclyde Globetrotters has now become global. Is that right?
Yes, we took the name Inverclyde Globetrotters. Initially, when people heard about us, they confused us with a more famous globetrotting team, the Harlem Globetrotters. But they were at the Braehead Arena at one point where we were active as a group, and we thought we might go along and challenge them to a game. But people were always vaguely disappointed when they actually saw us in real life. But yes, the Inverclyde Globetrotters eventually carried on walking. And after a journey that took them over all the continents in the world and through over 100 countries, they clocked up 250,000 miles, and they landed softly on the moon in 2019 in nice time to celebrate Neil Armstrong's, the 50th anniversary of Neil Armstrong's infamous moonwalk. And we've got a lovely certificate from the UK Space Agency, a message and a photograph from Great Britain's first astronaut, Dr. Helen Sharman, and a picture from NASA's administrator with a good wishes message. So we're probably, I don't know how we get into space. I have absolutely no idea. But the Inverclyde Globetrotters went global and then landed on the moon. And World Walking, what they inspired. And I don't think I've ever been more inspired by anything than the efforts of this group of individuals, all of whom had cardiac events, scary things, and they got behind us, and some of them were still walking when they reached the moon. Some of the first people who were there in the first class were still walking as part of the group 10 years later. 11 years, 10 months and 3 days it took them. And I've never been prouder of a group. We didn't even know there was a thing called a health walk. I couldn't claim that we went on one. We just went for a walk. But the idea was very simple. Try and encourage people to stay active between their weekly gym-based class and not to think of exercise as something that required lycra. We only had 2 rules in Inverclyde Globetrotters. No lycra, and you had to have fun. So not to think of it as something that required special equipment, etc. There's no better exercise than walking, and to encourage people just to walk as much as they can. They wore their pedometers between classes, and with a simple spreadsheet, we just clocked up their miles every week for a decade.
Absolutely brilliant rules. I love it. No lycra and have fun, because I know I often talk about the joy of movement, and if you're not enjoying it, you're just not going to do it, are you? But you say from these, you say that you went from these this simple spreadsheet, and now it couldn't be more automated and it couldn't be more simple. Because we as a practice, having heard the story from Dr. Emma Lunan, who I recently interviewed on this podcast about movement for health, and we spoke during that about both of us are active practices. The Royal College of GPs have this active practice charter that we both take part in, and as part of that, it's about getting staff more active. And one of the simplest ways of doing that is, as you say, to get people walking. So as you're aware, our practice has really taken off with this. And the latest stats for us is that we've done 61 million steps as a practice since we started doing this. And we're on our 20th walk already. We've walked some fantastic places. I mean, the range of routes that are available are fantastic. What would you say is your favourite walk of all of them?
Oh, that's a nearly, probably the last one that I've done is probably my favourite until I do a new one. Ones I've particularly liked, probably the Camino de Santiago and Slovenia, places like that, things that are a decent length and with nice pictures. And that's all we try to do. It's a very simple idea. Just use the steps you walk every day. It's like world walking's like your virtual ticket, with no queues at airports. You just go and choose a place, a destination in the world, and you go and explore it using your steps that you walk every day. And you can see your progress on a map. You can see pictures of milestones and a wee story. Talking about
stories there, Duncan, you told me a story last week about that Camino de Santiago.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Way back, a few years ago, I had an email from a lady called Frida, who lives in Spain with her husband, and she wrote to me to say that they'd moved to Spain. They were wanting to manage their weight. Her husband had asthma. They both were receiving medication for high blood pressure, and they'd found world walking, and they were using that to walk. And they were doing the Santiago, the Camino de Santiago walk and world walking. And we kept in touch over the years on and off. And she wrote to me just in June or July this year to say that she wanted to let me know that they were now going to walk a long stretch of the Camino for real, her and her husband. They had managed their weight. They were no longer taking any asthma medication. I think that's probably the weather in Spain, maybe. But they were no longer taking blood pressure medication. And there were 2 of them were going off to walk the Camino. And they finished it, and they sent me photographs outside the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela and a photograph of their certificate. And she also said that her son had decided to walk to Everest Base Camp to complete that trek, and had trained for it using the Everest Base Camp virtual walk and world walking from London to Mount Everest, and sent me 2 or 3 of the most wonderful photographs of her son at Everest Base Camp with Everest in the background. And they've now gone back. They're now part of our most precious possessions. And it just shows you, I mean, we can't produce any real evidence of the long-term benefits of using world walking, but it works for some people, doesn't work for everybody. But if you can if you can explore this world that we live in, and it's a wonderful world, it's a great world. We don't put anything on it about wars or anything. We just try and keep it lighter than that. We try and get the nicest photographs we can get, and we take advantage of Google Street View so that people can click on it and see what it looks like in the world. So for schools and other places, we hope it's just a way of bringing the world closer So instead of just lapping the park with the dog or whatever, you can actually set yourself a goal and a purpose. And it's great if your families, if you've got families and members in different countries, different towns, different continents, it's a joint activity. You can create a wee group and walk together and do your own journey and use a very rudimentary group chat facility to communicate and stuff.
And it's not just the UK that is using the World Walking app either, is it? You were telling me about the worldwide reach that this is having.
I've no idea. We've no marketing budget, no budget full stop, but we've no clue about marketing, and I am absolutely rubbish in social media. But people find it, and over the piece, I would say 65% of our users are out with the UK. We've had about 216,000 people have found World Walking and created user accounts. They are a bit like gym memberships or exercise bikes that you buy at home. Some get used and some don't. But the people who have used it, the users have come from well over 100 countries around the world and in every one of the 50 states in the United States. So the US is our biggest market after the UK. And but we have people dropping us emails from time to time from some of the most unexpected places, and it's terrific. I get up every morning, and when I'm eating my porridge, I check into World Walking. Pretty sad this to confess, and I see how many people have joined overnight. If there's anybody wanting to help with a question, and I see how many extra miles have come in overnight. So it's it's fun. What's not to like?
Just tell me once again how far World Walking has recorded people walking.
Well, this week has been a milestone for World Walking. We actually, our online community of World Walkers have passed 60 million miles. And that's the equivalent of 2,400 laps of the world. It's enough to make you dizzy. And our next goal, because we always need a goal. Goals are good. They give you a sense of achievement when you realise them and sense of purpose. So our next goal, it's always got to be measurable. So we have got 62.5 million miles on our sites. That's 2,500 laps of the world. And that's a nice round number that my brain can remember. So that's where we're heading next. And with a bit of luck, it's a bit of a stretch, but a bit of luck, we might reach that around about the end of our current financial year next March, if we get a wee rush of new users wanting to do something about their New Year resolutions getting on board in January.
Well, I have absolutely no doubt, Duncan, that if you get this right, you'll be there at the 2,500 laps around the world. That is absolutely incredible. It has been a joy and a pleasure to talk to you about the World Walking app. You used so many of my favourite words and phrases during our discussion today: keeping things simple, discovering the joy, having fun, goal, purpose, community. I think this is probably what you set out to do, and you do it so well. Thank you so much, Duncan, for having this discussion with me today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.